Wood County Registrar to go over some of these things. I wanted to know how many names she had. At that time, I didn't know the list had been published. And she had 21, so I called her and I reminded her, I said, you have 24. There just isn't, you just cannot have enough effort, you cannot put enough effort into this to stand by. I mean, you cannot lack putting an effort into it to just stand by. We have to take care of this now. Think about this. The elected officials always are running away from any controversy. After this 95,000 came out, they were running all over the place. You know, and what's going to happen when you turn the clock past December 31st of this year and get into the election year? Well, they're not going to do anything. Of course, our session will be over for sure, but they're not going to do anything to remotely do this. Now let's go back to my timeline. One last thing. The timeline is that I get the resolution passed at my first meeting in September. Comes December, it's still not posted up on the RPT website. I'm going, what is this? They're not putting this up. But then, just as the January statement came out of the 95,000, they put it up on the website. So they didn't want that to be known. So now, that has come out now, at the end of January, about these 95,000 people. But the clock is ticking for something to happen. We have to put pressure on them. And the only way something's going to happen is for them to be exposed that they allowed this to happen. The fact that there's 95,000 names out there, to me, is the most valuable thing. Last thing, I asked Joanne if we could put in to give us an action item for this group to have, is towards the end of the book. We have the House Committee, which is the Elections Committee headed up by Stephanie Click. She's the chair. And we have all the members, and we have all of their telephone numbers in Austin. And I just heard from a very, very good quality lobbyist, Rachel Malone, that if you contact them, it's effective by phone. And you also have the committee that Brian is on. He's the vice chair of that committee. In the Senate, the State Affairs Committee will probably be the one that handles bills that have to do with the topic you heard today. So you have all the information. Please make the effort to contact them. Thanks.
Bob's a stud, isn't he? Okay, is it working? Okay, I'm not on the schedule for those of you that are detail oriented. You didn't see my name on there. So those who don't know, my name is Aaron Harris, and I'm previously with Direct Action Texas. The other stud, Daniel, he's doing awesome, taking over DAT, and Christine did a phenomenal job. It was a little weird seeing my presentation being given by somebody else, but good job, Christine. So I just want to cover a couple things real quick that Joanne's asked me to kind of summarize a couple things. First, I want to say, like, this presentation's tough, right? There's a lot of stuff here that can be kind of depressing, but I want to say, keep your head up, right? 2 years ago, we first went public with this stuff in October, the mail-in ballot fraud specifically. And when we went public with mail-in ballot fraud, October of 2016, so that was October, it was like October 15, 16, halfway through the month. We were going into session 2 months later. And, you know, so 8 months later, SB 5 was signed into law. It went from tinfoil hat conspiracy stuff to law in 8 months, right? We went from, you guys are crazy, to Abbott putting it on his call for special session. And the pendulum of public opinion on mail-in ballot fraud swung that quickly, at least with legislators, okay? Now, SB 5 was not the solution, folks. SB 5 was strictly increased penalties so that we can start to prove that some of this stuff's real. As such, it went into effect December of last year. As such, this year, prosecutions are up 80%, okay? Now, here's some more good news. For the first time ever, Democrats are admitting that voter fraud exists. Okay, for those of you that aren't following, in North Carolina, you have a Republican who hasn't been seated in Congress yet because it was a Republican congressional candidate who harvested mail-in ballots. Ironically enough, North Carolina uses the same system Texas does. And so for the first time, you have Republicans out there, or I'm sorry, Democrats out there admitting and calling to not seat somebody over election fraud. This is a huge bipartisan issue now. I love giving Democrats on the Hill a hard time about that and watching them squirm. But my point to everybody is that the conversation has changed in the last 2-3 years, It's changed drastically. Very rarely does an issue of this importance move this quickly. So be of good cheer, but know that it's going to continue to take a lot of work. While we got SB 5 done last session, this session is the time for real reforms. One of the things I want you all to keep an eye on, and I was just talking to Joanne about this before I came up, is Senator Hughes' bill, okay? So, David talked about citizenship stuff. Let me just say that under HAVA and under the current law, there is a lot more Texas could be doing, should be doing, to verify citizenship of voters, okay? Senator Hughes has been given the opportunity by folks in the AG's office to include that in his bill. We're waiting to see what he comes out of ledge session with, or ledge council with. But hopefully the Titan citizenship stuff will be on Brian's bill, and then we'll get a concurrent one in the House probably with Stephanie Click. For those of you who don't know, we are in Stephanie Click's district. She's chairing elections. It's a very good thing. All of you should be happy about that. So be of good cheer about that. I don't know if there's anything else you want me to touch on, Joanne? But this is really the session to hold your state reps and senators and the governor's feet to the fire to get actual reforms. This stuff's nerdy, it's weedy, it's boring. I always tell people, if you have insomnia and if Exodus and Leviticus don't work, put you to sleep. Read the election code, you will go to sleep, okay? But for the first time that I've ever seen, legislators are paying attention. So this is an issue you guys should and can get traction. Going into the re-election of Donald Trump, 2020 election, this is going to be a hot national conversation piece. Yep. So keep up the fire. And the last thing, I'll close with this. So those of you who don't know, I'm in DC now. And as always, Texas is leading the way on this stuff. Like, we're so far ahead of the curve on the rest of the country and the grassroots on this topic. North Carolina is waking up going, oh, what's going on with this stuff? What's mail-in ballot? And people on the Hill are just now starting to learn about mail-in ballot fraud. But everybody in this room, at least all the people I recognize, we've known about it for years, right? So we're ahead of the curve. We literally are the model. I know we say that all the time, but I can tell you we are. We're leading on this. Continue to lead. Don't let up now. Thanks.
I hope as you all have heard all of the presentations today, you should have connected a common dot among all of them. Every single weakness in Texas elections has been discovered by a citizen activist.
Yes.
None of this was brought out ever until citizen activists raised the issues.
That's right.
Now that should be a sobering bit of knowledge for you, but that should also motivate you. Nobody is going to save Texas but the Texas grassroots, and that's all of you.
That's right.
Nobody's coming to save us. We have to save the state. And the things that Laura Presley has done, that Aaron Harris has done, that Daniel and Christine, that Bob is doing, that David is doing, there are people who will benefit from what we are doing that are not even alive today. That is the kind of time that we are living in. And we simply have to keep going. Now, we shouldn't be in this place, friends. We shouldn't. So here's a little bit of bitter medicine here for you. I have to do this. Other people serve dessert, not me. I wish I could. I wish I had the luxury. Because I'm going to tell you, I know things about this that we can't talk about. And there is very little that scares me, very little that scares Joanne Fleming. Because I trust God.
Amen.
Amen. I trust God. And I just do the best I can, and I leave the results to Him. But I am telling you right now, I have seen things that scare me for our country. For our dear state and our country. Because I'm going to tell you, the left and their connections, international connections, are coming after Texas. Because if they get us, they get the country. That's why I'm going to have to say some of the things I say. Because this is not about whether or not I like elected officials. I have worked hard for the last 27 years to put people in office. But it's not a lifelong commitment to them. I like to say that I've been married to the same man for 40 years, and everybody else is subject to recall. So when we endorse someone and they win office, when they're asking us for our endorsement, I always tell them, now if you earn this endorsement, we are going to hold you accountable. So don't act surprised and get all hurt. But I will tell you this, friends, before we ever call an elected official out publicly, we have done everything we could do to settle the issue privately. So now how we've tried to settle the issue privately with these coalition letters, I'm going to read the one that we sent to Governor Abbott. It's dated January 31st. Dear Governor Abbott, last week, Secretary of State Whitley released data calling into question the number of non-citizens registered to vote in Texas elections. The announcement follows a year when prosecutions of voter fraud outpaced the past 5 years combined. Texas has election integrity issues that need to be addressed. Lawmakers in both chambers appear poised to tackle the issue, having focused on the issue of securing elections during the interim. That's the interim committee we've talked about. This includes work done by the Senate Select Committee on Election Integrity. As you weigh priority issues ahead of your State of the State address, we renew our request that you make election integrity an emergency item to be taken up during the first 60 days of the 86th legislative session. Attached is a Texas Conservative Grassroots Coalition letter we sent to your office in August of 2018, requesting emergency status for election integrity ahead of the November 2018 elections. Lawmakers need to be working on reforms to shore up trust in our election system as soon as possible. Your strong, renewed public commitment will greatly assist the legislature in doing the work needed to move us toward election integrity and ballot security. We knew we had to be in a hurry to do this, so we thought we would just do a cover letter, have a few of the people that have been on the front lines of this sign the letter, and attach to it the 2016 coalition letter. And by the way, you can find all of the coalition letters under a header at the top of our website. It's Grassroots America, We the People. It's GAWTV.com. There's a header up there that says coalition. You can find all the coalition letters on a myriad of topics that we've done. Anyway, this is respectfully the undersigned Texas Grassroots political leaders. Daniel Greer, Executive Director of Direct Action Texas. Dr. Laura Presley, founder of the True Texas Elections, LLC. Kathy Adams, First Vice President of Eagle Forum. Joanne Fleming, Executive Director of Grassroots America, We the People. Tracy Bradford, President, Texas Eagle Forum. Michael Quinn Sullivan, CEO of Empower Texans. Dick Salisbury of Salisbury Industries, a conservative donor extraordinaire. And Monty Bennett, Ashford Hospitality, another big donor. Crickets. We got crickets from this. He did not name it in his emergency item. Governor Abbott did not name election integrity. I hate to tell you that. There are a great many things that Greg Abbott does that I very much support. And when he does the things that we support, he does the right thing at the right time for the right reason, we support him. But this gave the wrong signal. Now what we told you about 2020, this gave the wrong signal. So I will tell you that we have come a very long way, we have. I'll tell you this, that if it had not been for Direct Action Texas, if it had not been for Aaron Harris and his team, the Texas Secretary of State's office to this day would not be trying to verify the voter rolls.
That's right.
There is no indication, because in the last 25-something years that Republicans have been in charge of state government, the verification system has not been done once. Not once. Not once. So we simply have to keep going. Now I'm gonna go into another little thing here, because I've heard it said that the Attorney General's office is talking about they haven't had the money to do this. Now let me say for the record, because I will hear from people who are near and dear to Ken. I like Ken Paxton. I've tried to do everything I could to help him get his cookies out of the fire with the media on all this nonsense about investigations. Now, we have stood with Ken Paxton. But I have to tell you that Ken Paxton knew that we had issues with voter fraud because of the work that Direct Action Texas was doing with the AG's office, bringing them complaints. They knew this when we were going through the budget process last session. And let me remind you of something else. Government finds a way to fund what it wants to do. Money is fungible to them in many ways. And you cannot tell me that if the Attorney General went to the Texas governor and said, Governor, we've got a problem here, and it's run away, and I've just begun to understand it, so Governor, I need you to declare an emergency. I will tell you that there are ways to get funding for this. The Attorney General's office has more than 4,000 employees in 38 divisions and 117 offices around Texas. His office had information about potential voter fraud back during the 85th legislative session. So why does the AG have 2 people working on this? It's just a question that reasonable people might ask. Reasonable people might ask, out of 4,000 employees, how is it that we have 2 people working on this? And I have to tell you, I mean, Aaron, I'll never forget the day that Aaron called me just before Christmas last year and told me about this $4 million and $280,000. This is how he started the conversation. Joanne, I'm about to tell you something that is going to make you mad. And I said, well, golly, Aaron, Merry Christmas to you too. But when he got through telling me that, I said, I will tell you this, Aaron Harris. The grassroots of Texas are not going to put up with this. We're going to do whatever we have to do to stop it. We're going to get to the bottom of this. So I'm telling y'all, we have to get to the bottom of this. And we are doing all things. We're trying to talk to, we have already talked to the Trump team about this. We are looking at all avenues to get to the heart of this and to get this taken care of. Because I'm going to tell you, the timeline. This is something nobody talks about, but David Carter has figured out the timeline. Do you know we have about 16 months to get this straightened out and to get our voter registration files and all that cleaned up, and also address all the issues that Laura talked about? All of these issues that we talked about today, we've got about 16 months. Because you run up to, what, 90 days away from a federal election, they won't let you take anybody off the road. So, if you meet an elected official that does not have a sense of urgency about this, please do what you can to educate them. And after you have, if they really don't care, you might need to change out that elected official. Now, we need to get some questions, but I want to tell you a couple things in your book. If you look right after, I believe right after Bob Kexick's resolution, you will see a letter in here that explains facts about what the Texas Conservative Grassroots Coalition is. Now, so what will help you interpret that is if you turn over to the next page and you look at something called Texas Conservative Grassroots Coalition definitions. I don't have to read all this to you, y'all can read, and I urge you to do so that you understand if you fit this criteria, or if you're here today representing an organization, one of these Republican club groups, and you're not an officer and you can't be an official spokesperson for that organization, you need to take this to the person who can, okay? Because the basis of the coalition letters are this. We get people to represent organizations, and by the time we get a letter that has about 150 leaders signing on to that letter, what that means is those leaders are opinion leaders in their communities, and they represent thousands of people. Last session, we killed a really bad bill that we don't have time to go into today. It's called the Buffett bill, and we're shorthand. The coalition killed it dead as a hammer, and we did it on purpose because, you know, Warren Buffett pole vaulted over all of our bills that we were waiting for in committee, and his was headed for the floor of the Senate. We killed it before it got there. And what it takes is taking these letters and putting them down the desk of senators. We start in the Senate first because you can kill a bad bill in the Senate. And if you kill it in the Senate, we don't even have to worry about the people over in the House. So there are different, we're going to use these letters, we use them for committee meetings, for hearings, as testimony. So you need to go through here, you need to understand what the coalition is. Whenever we talk about first principles, you need to understand what first principles are. Because this coalition is focused on conservative First Liberty principles and not on personalities. You know, like I said, over and over, I personally like Ken Paxton. I personally like Greg Abbott. I personally like Dan Patrick. Worked really hard to get them elected and re-elected. But this is a deal breaker. Yeah. We got to take care of this, right? Okay. So then you also need to understand who an opinion leader is, and that's the other definition down here. Now, let me stress in the back of your book, this table that we've got that was Bob's idea, I added, Robert and I added the social media handles in here because, you know, you can talk to some of them faster through social media than you could ever hope to get any of them on the phone. So use all ways, all methods to contact your elected officials. Now, I do want to say again from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate the time that you all took today to come out and hear this presentation. I hope that there has been something said here that lights that brush fire of freedom in your hearts and minds that makes you want to keep going. And I would ask you to please pray for our efforts. Now, somebody start collecting the cards where you get your questions on your cards. And panel, if you would come sit up here, we're going to run through about 30 minutes of questions.
That's the most important one.
And while everybody's getting organized, I want you to be on the lookout for a coalition project that we're going to be doing on the border wall. We hope to get it out early this week in support of President Trump starting in Texas to build the border wall, because we're in the 5th Circuit Court. We're not in the 9th Circuit. We're in the 5th Circuit. You start where you believe you might not have as big of a problem in our estimation. So we're going to be working on a coalition letter to our congressional leaders on that. Okay, first one. Dr. Presley, are early vote tapes showing results for each race? Do early vote tapes show results for each race?
They're supposed to. If you look at the election code 66.023, it talks about election results, precinct returns for early voting. Precinct returns mean every candidate, how much they got, in what precinct. Now, there's also a provision in the election code that if election judges start yapping early because they've seen the tapes, it's a criminal offense to start yapping early. So we deal with it that way. So the answer is yes, it's supposed to be there.
Okay, second part of that. Who or how is that kept secret until election day?
Election judges have a criminal violation if they start talking about it.
Okay, another one for you. Regarding audit logs at central counting stations, the old technology captured server messages and operator actions. Does the new technology system, 1, allow shutting off logging, 2, allow for more than one operator console?
So that's a good question. Even today, there are multiple consoles for large counties. So the answer is yes to the second one. And yes, I've seen audit logs for the new express vote systems, and the error messages that they're recording are similar to what the old technology has. So we have, we're watching that very carefully.
Christine, you and Daniel should take this one. Is there legislation coming to require some ID for absentee ballots? Secondarily, require proof of disability with ABBM?
Actually, so it's actually moving the other direction. There's no bills that would move towards that direction. In fact, they're trying to make it even easier. So the Democrats have a whole bunch of bills in, make it even easier for people to apply for ballot by mail. Also, that the assistance level, they want to lower that to, you don't even have to have a disability. There's all kinds of stuff of, you know, allowing everyone to vote by mail that wants to vote by mail. So as far as legislation we've seen, it's all been from the Democrat side, and it's all been basically to make it easier to vote by mail.
But the flip side of that is we're asking for these things to be limited. And then back to the waivers, waivers are being issued that currently allow for, you know, everyone to be disabled. Like I walk out of my house today and the sun hits my eyes wrong, I'm disabled. So right now there are waivers being issued that allow for that kind of activity. So again, that's in the waivers. We're also trying to legislate these things to put in statute.
Okay. Laura, I think perhaps you. Keith Ingram has skated state statute for over a decade. We must appeal to the SOS to appoint a new director of elections. How do we do this?
That's a great question. He's been there since 2012, actually, 6 years. And I think this investigation committee that David brought up is a really good method. I think there needs to be an investigation why we have a state bureaucrat who appears to be violating the state constitution.
Yeah.
So instead of going to the legislature and changing the law, that office is just ignoring and giving written waivers to ignore law. We have to address it. We are a state and a nation of laws.
So we call Kim Pastor.
We have to go, I'm not sure exactly how to do it, but it appears they are violating our Constitution. And I think this investigation committee is really good.
I intend to place printed questions in the hands of the members of the committee Monday morning so they can ask some of these embarrassing questions. Not to embarrass, but to get information.
Okay, Daniel, this one could be for you. Should I call my Democrat state senator and Democrat state rep for the election fraud issues, or does that just, I think that word is encourage them and their caucus in their anti-religious bills, etc.? Does it just, in other words, I think what the writer is saying is, does it just gin them up for us to call them?
No, I'd say call them and tell them, here are the problems that I see. Be ready for them to push back, and just, you know, be able to tell them, no, this is what I know. That because they'll probably bring up the talking points that they've read in the media. This list of 95,000 people was sent out in error. It was a bad list. It's not a bad list. It's a list of people that the Secretary of State had that it needed to make sure were eligible to vote, and they have to send those to the county and they can figure that out. So I'd be ready to tell them that, and then I think Christine's about to talk about this. Democrats have problems with this too. So you can call them and tell them, hey, here are the issues that I see, this is what I've heard, and I want you to be on the right side of this. So yeah, you'd be surprised, I think, at some of the responses that you get.
Okay, this person says, I'm a Dallas County GOP precinct chair. What can I do to get okay, this would apply to just about everybody, I think, so I wasn't going to try to interpret the name. I'm a Dallas County GOP precinct chair. What can I do to get, to verify/remove any or all of the 9,000 allegedly non-citizens voting? So Daniel, you want to do that?
Well, if you're asking about a wireless mic sound system is better.
Green light.
Okay, we're asking about a specific county, then you specifically have to work with your county election official, your county registrar or elections official.
Here, David, I'll let you use this one.
I just want to put a hand on the power button. I'll keep pressing.
No, it's here, not better.
If you go to the Office of the Secretary of State's website, it's very easy to find who your elections registrar is for the county and has their telephone number.
Okay, now, the way you want to do it, there's in the election code, you want to use, if you go on the website and bring up the law, go to 16.033. And that's the one that says the county registrar has the authority to investigate anybody for anything, for any reason, there's any lawful means. And you would want them to send the VW form 1-12, investigation for citizenship. Okay, now if they're in Dallas, Tarrant, Travis, Bayer, or Harris County, they're probably not going to be giving you the time of day to do that. But if you're in anywhere in the other 254 counties, you might get some good response to do that. I don't know if that answers or not.
One option that you have also, because I know if it was Tony Pippen's pool you're talking about, yeah, she's not going to do that at all. But one option that you always have, anytime that you find an election violation like this, if there's something where your elections administrator is not following the law, something like that, there is a form on the Secretary of State's website for election violations where you can report those. It's really not that difficult of a form to fill out. You just state the facts of what's happening. If you like, you can contact me. I can help you to fill them out. I've filled out tons of them. You send that to the Secretary of State, and then that gets the Secretary of State involved. If they're not able to fix the problem, they can send it to the AG. So if they're actually violating the election code, we need to give that over to the AG and just let them know what's going on.
There's another section where any individual voter, any of you, anybody you know, can go and you can challenge a registered voter. But it requires hearings and notices and responses. It's a long process. It's much easier if you can just persuade your registrar. If your registrar won't, go in there and individually challenge the people.
Thank you. And the contact information for the panelists are in your booklet here, so you can get in touch with them to ask them additional questions. Do you have any idea why the governor and lieutenant governor don't appear to be interested in this voter problem? Well, okay, let me start with Lieutenant Dan, as I call him. And he told me I could share this with you. I don't think he even knew we were doing this. He doesn't know a lot of things that we do. But he certainly pays attention to the letters when they get on the desk. Okay. He actually said to me, we were talking about, he called me and he said. You know, let's just kind of talk about what the session is looking like, what we think it's going to shape up to be. And he said, you know what I think the #1 issue needs to be for the grassroots? He said, it's this election fraud stuff. And I said, Lieutenant Dan, we are way ahead of you. We are way ahead of you. So, now for the governor, I cannot tell you. I think that he has responded to us. He never calls you up and says, heard what you said, you guys are right, keep going. When he is mad at me, like over the red flag stuff, the gun stuff, a staffer will call me to tell me that he's mad at me, to which I replied, you know, I didn't wake up today with the first thing on my list being, let me see if I can make Greg Abbott mad at me. But I will tell you, when it's an issue of our gun rights, when it's an issue of conservative principles, when it's about our liberty, he'll just have to be mad. Because we aren't going to sit by and see Texans, our freedoms eroded by Republican office holders, okay? So anyway, I can't tell you, I think with Mr. Whitley, I think we see a response. Now, it's been a little problematic with the rollout. I'm hoping that there is work being done. Some of the things that you see that you don't hear out of them is because they're being sued. MALDAF, LULAC, ACLU, every alphabet suit from the left is suing. And so some of their answers, responses to the media, etc., are guarded because they don't want to give them any more ammunition. So there you have it. Explain Keith Ingram's past in other states. Was it Arkansas? The real problem he has been with Republican total control. So anybody want to take that? Laura?
There's an article that's out there on Keith Ingram's history, his political history. And what it says is that he was a lawyer that worked for the state of Texas for about 10 years. And he left Texas and moved to Little Rock, Arkansas. He was there, I think, 11 or 12 months and worked for a lawyer who was a former partner in the Rose Law Firm. Now that's available. Those records were obtained from a public information request that document, because he's a state employee, you get to see his personnel file. After he left Arkansas, he came back to Texas, and he took a serious pay cut and went to work for Rick Perry. And then he was appointed to elections director under Rick Perry, and he's been there since 2012. We have some serious concerns about that. And the issues of these waivers are beyond making us angry. We want something done about it. Right. And so I love what David has raised. I mean, not only waivers to counting laws, he's giving waivers to registration, he's giving other waivers to all kinds of issues. This is where the rubber meets the road. He has to be reined in to stop violating our Constitution and waiving law. He has to be stopped. And so we've appealed to Greg Abbott. And I'm going to say this, Joanne, there's a woman in East Texas, in Cherokee County, who called Greg Abbott's office and said, we've been working on this for years, guys, with Mr. Ingram. And, you know, we respectfully disagree with what he's doing. And she called Greg Abbott's office, and the response was, we can't get rid of Keith Ingram because Rick Perry hired him. I'm telling you a direct quote. This is, and she lives in Cherokee County. If you want to call her, she'll tell you the same thing. And we don't agree with that. We don't support that. We don't understand that. It is under the governor's sphere of influence to do something about this, and we demand something be done. And we demand that the new Secretary of State clean up the elections division, that we follow law.
Correct, and I want to just say this. I think some of the things that have gone on in the Secretary of State's office, that some of what I call rogue employees, I think past secretaries of state probably didn't even know what was going on. Because let me tell you, up until we raised the issue about the definition of what a Secretary of State was supposed to be doing for the state of Texas, and that is paying attention to election security, election integrity and ballot security. Anytime you read an article about the SOS, it was about the SOS being an ambassador for Texas, the Texas economy with Mexico, etc. I mean, every article was about that. Every time they retire, somebody lauds them for all of their, economic acumen and their diplomatic skills. And we're going, wait a minute, that's not the constitutional job description. And so we put it in the coalition letter, and very interestingly enough, when Mr. Whitley made his first statements after being nominated by Governor Abbott, he talked about his responsibilities. And so, like I say, I think that we're getting through, but if y'all are waiting for somebody to throw a parade in our honor, that's not going to happen.
Joanne, I just want to add to
Yes.
that on the Secretary of State. The Secretary of State's office made a press release, and they announced that since 2014, the state has registered, I'm back to my registration again, 1.6 million people in the last 4 years. 1.6 million.
Okay, well, the other thing I want to tell you to finish the thought on whether or not some of the elected officials know what their rogue employees are doing. I will tell you that Laura Presley, myself, and Aaron Harris were having a conversation with the AG's office about the committee that approves voting machines that can be for sale in the state of Texas. And we brought up the issue that the machines, many of them, don't meet the constitutional standard. So if there's not a checklist that the AG's representatives on that committee and the SOS employees that are on that committee, if there's not a checklist of criteria that whether or not at the top would be meets constitutional standards. And apparently that doesn't even exist. So what I'm saying is they had never considered that until we spoke it to them in that way, okay? So, but I do believe that there are people that have been employees, state employees for a while in some of these regards that are working against us. So, we'll just keep going. All right, are you having this meeting in Dallas County? We have had multiple requests for meetings, and we absolutely will try to have one of these presentations where we're asked. What I would ask you to do is to do what Julie did. Julie asked Republican clubs, and they all went in together and to sponsor this. So we're not asking you all to spend a ton of money, but we are asking you to provide the basic setups and a nice place to meet with enough room, because we filled this room today, and I'm so proud of that. Thank you, Julie, and all the Republican clubs. You will also notice that we did not charge for this. It cost all of our organizations money to do this. And these little booklets here, about $500 to put them together and to print them for you. So now, if anybody has a soft heart for what we're doing today, and you want to donate to any of these organizations, you don't even have to donate to me. If you want to donate to any of these guys up here, I'd ask you to please do it, because it costs plenty of money to do what we do. Thank you so much. We need to get our chairs picked up. Julie, you got anything you need to say as a wrap up?
As you leave, bring your chair, because we